Hi guys, and welcome to a new video. In this video I'm gonna show my most recent games from my first ever Chess 960 tournament. If you don't know how Chess 960 works, you can check out my video on Chess 960. So I will go through all my games as far as I recall them, and I will show you the most interesting moments, and you can, as usual, always try to solve the most interesting positions on your own. So we will just dive into the game number one, which started c4, f5, e4 takes, rook takes, knight f6, rook goes back, and c5. In this position I was already quite happy because we can see that kind of black is having some development advantage. I have brought out one more piece, so if he copies this kind of strategy, it's very symmetrical, and yeah, I'm kind of faster. And also he has already lost the right to castle into this direction, which might affect him later. So we both continued developing. I brought my bishop out, and now I develop my second knight. And here my opponent did something which I think is already quite a serious mistake, which is d3. Closing in this bishop on b1, and if you want to challenge yourself, this is a moment where you can think about what you would do. And I actually like my decision, what I did here. I took and played bishop f4, getting rid of this bishop. One might argue that this bishop was not so bad, but once I put those pawns somewhere, then the bishop would be closed in, so that's why I wanted to exchange this pair of bishops, keeping my good bishop and keeping his bad bishop on the board, after which I had quite a huge advantage. I castled short. If you're surprised by this, check out the rules of castling in Chess 960, and black has a huge position. Now my opponent played g3, asking my queen where to go. Here you can again take some time and think about where to put the queen. And I will just discuss my thoughts which I had during the game. I would have loved to play something like this. Queen g4, getting ready to exploit this pin, but things are not so easy as he has h3, and my queen cannot really stay on this diagonal because it might just end up very, very passive on h6. And also maybe black can just wait with g4 and play something normal. So I was not entirely sure here. Also I considered something like this, but I thought it would just be risky because I'm material down and it's not so clear. But there was another interesting move, and I think I also considered it, but I thought it's maybe risky for me, but the computer actually likes this a lot, and I will explain you why. Because in such a position, white really has zero counterplay. He cannot even trade a pair of rooks. I completely control everything. I can set up my pawns like this. The knight cannot be attacked by anybody, not even by a rook or by some exchange sacrifice. So the knight is really stable. It holds together everything. I can enter on the second rank whenever I want. I can also bring the bishop around, creating some threats. And really there is no counterplay. That's why the computer really loves this. White also has some structural damage, and this bishop on c2 is very bad. So basically black would be winning here. So that would have been the best option, but I didn't go for it. I just dropped back my queen. Queen e2, d6, bishop d3. And here it's also obvious that black is better. The bishop is just much better than white's. I have some targets and some pressure along the f-file. And there are many ways to play it in positional style, and maybe the best was to go e5. But I actually did not quite see this in advance clearly. So yes, this looks quite appealing, of course. However, I had another idea, which was knight e5, changing my pawn structure like this, because it again puts pressure on the f-file, and I have an excellent outpost here. So after f3, rook d8 castles, rook d4, I was still pressing when my opponent, kind of was too impatient and sacrificed a pawn, after which I was completely winning. Now I tried to trade the queens along the f-file, that's why I dropped back the rook, and he went for this exchange after which I won a second pawn and he resigned. So let's continue with the next game. In the next game I had the white pieces and I kind of misplayed the opening a bit, but I want to show you one important moment. This is here. So actually I have brought out a lot of pieces, but this knight here is quite annoying, and black also has some threats. For example, bishop a3 might be coming, queen b5 might be coming, and now it's up to white to solve this issue. If you want to challenge yourself, take your time, pause the video, and we will discuss the solution. The best move here is a4, which I played in the game, but let's first discuss maybe some alternative, which I also considered was queen to d3. Because in case of queen here, I can play queen b3, parrying all the threats. Also, this bishop a3 I can just take because this is no longer mate, because I can interfere with the queen. However, I didn't like it that much because after some move like f6, trying to build up some center, I thought I cannot really castle because the b2 pawn drops, and even though I get an open file against his king, I thought it's very, very stable for him and I can never challenge the knight again, which was true. And that's why I kind of thought, okay, I need to kick this knight out, and therefore we need to play a4, because b3 always runs into this check, which is trouble. But after a4, I'm ready to play b3, because if the knight gives this check, it will never come out again. Just after king b2, it's losing material. In the game there followed something like this, after which I got a huge development advantage, and I played e3 up and got a strong center, and computers are claiming that white is winning here with such a center, b-file, and a lot of possible ideas like bringing the knight here. So I won after some more fight, but we will just continue with the next game. So in this game I had the black pieces and it was quite a crazy game, and I will show you just the most important moments. So we traded some stuff, black was comfortable here. I decided to create some imbalance by giving my bishop castles, and I decided to push my pawns on the queen side to get some counterplay. He took, and I pushed c4, trying to get my knight to d3, which was not so easy, but I still tried, and his bishop is kind of bad at the moment. Okay, he played queen to e2. I played king h8 prophylaxis because he won't take with check, so he cannot take at all because the bishop on b2 would drop. That's why he took and removed the bishop, which I thought was quite passive. I thought it's better to start with rook c1 because maybe you might activate the bishop, or maybe you just keep it there. I played queen a6, stabilizing the pawn. He played rook b1, rook b8, and h4. This h4 move I was a bit afraid of because my knight at the moment has no single square to go, and h5, h6 is on the agenda. So in this position it looks kind of troublesome for black, and if you really want to challenge yourself, then you can try to come up with a plan how to answer this attack. I will continue with my thoughts what I had during the game. So of course there is no time for playing something like h6 because the knight is just trapped. The most direct attempt, which I always recommend to check, is all the captures and the forcing moves. For me, this was like trading everything and creating this square for my knight, but I didn't like it because I would give up the b file, and also my knight is very passive, and especially this one looks quite ugly because I have back rank issues and his queen is ready to enter. So that's why I didn't like giving up the b file for free. And I also didn't like such moves because eventually once he pushes h6, my f6 pawn will be the weakest spot. So I thought it's quite important in a defensive sense to keep the pawn on e7, to just keep the f6 pawn more solid. That's why I decided to play rook c8, which was actually a decent move. I just empty this square for the knight. I don't give up the b file, and I can play this position, in which I, however, need to make another major decision. Do I move g6? Do I even move g5? Or don't I react at all playing knight g6? And this is also something you can think about, and I will explain what I was thinking here. So in the game I took, and my main alternative was playing g6. And comparing those two moves, it seemed to me that after g6 I'm just suffering for nothing. Because white has two advantages. He has not lost a pawn, and he has some mating ideas. My king is very weak. This pawn is really annoying. It's not really a weakness, it's rather strength, and by bringing one single piece there, for example the queen, it's getting really dangerous because the queen already has some support of the pawn. Meanwhile, if I take this pawn, white is a pawn down. It will take some time for white to regain this pawn. My king is weak, yes, that's true, but the king is weak in the other case too. And also the queen has no direct support, so the queen needs another piece, for example this bishop, to checkmate me because the pawn is not there and there is no help. I think this was quite a practical decision, and I know that many people don't like spoiling their structure, but sometimes it's just necessary and things are not as dangerous as they look. And just because this pawn is missing, I'm not getting immediately checkmated. So after this, I kind of got a very good position. I traded off this bishop because I thought this is the most dangerous minor piece, and I need to be really careful that he won't sacrifice something on f6. So I got rid of this bishop. However, I should have taken here first, for example. I could also play for some ideas with knight g6, trying to trap the queen. You can investigate this further if you want, but I want to show you another moment. I took here, he took here, which was a good move, and now he had an amazing way to equalize the game with knight e4, threatening something like rook f6. Because if I take, he takes with the knight, and there are two mates threatened, and I cannot defend against both. So the position is still equal here, but it's very, very complicated. I could, for example, remove my knight here, and once he takes, I can maybe move my queen to here, creating some counter threats, for example. But that's quite hard, I think. Not taking anything, playing knight e4. Yes. So he decided to take a lot of pawns. He really needs to do that because if rook a1, my play is very simple. I have some knight g6, everything is stable. Rook f8 is threatened, and it's really hard to suggest anything for white here. So queen e7. After that, I had this tempo, and he has two pawns, but I have a queen. I played knight e3, and he played knight e4. At this point, black is, yeah, absolutely winning, but in practical terms, with a little time on the clock, it was not easy for me. And I should just have taken here, but I thought it's not working because he takes here, missing that I simply have queen b7. So instead I went to passive, and that's a general rule. Once you are defending, you should always try to defend actively, because that's the move you want to play. And once you can make this one work, you don't need to do anything else. And it should always be your priority. I checked it, but I didn't check it deeply enough, and that's why it failed. So after this, he played d6, attacking this pawn again, because my queen is no longer protecting. And I played queen c8, which is a good move. And after queen a4, I finally took, and attacked his knight. At this point, he played d7, offering this knight for free, hoping to queen maybe his pawn later. And if you want to challenge yourself, you can think about it. Can we take this knight, or is it too dangerous because he will get a second queen or anything else? And we will just continue. And the solution is yes, we can take it, because after queen a8, he cannot get a second queen because we have a mating sequence. It's not on g2 because this is covered by the queen from the corner, but we have knight g4, king needs to go to h3, we have another check. And he's checkmated despite having two queens. So my opponent saw this as well, and he played something like queen f3. I'm not entirely sure, because I just couldn't recollect all the moves. Here black is winning after queen d4, but I spoiled my position later and it ended in a draw. So let's continue with the next game, where I had the white pieces again, and this was my fastest game and my quickest win. The game started out symmetrically. I tried to get his bishop out and to open in the center, but my opponent tried to do the same, and I tried to break the symmetry a little bit. And he played bishop d6, which I at first sight thought it is a very clever move, attacking my pawn and getting ready for some c5 stuff. However, then I spotted this interesting idea that maybe now this bishop might be a target as it's unprotected. And if you want to challenge yourself here, you can think about it. Is it possible to take here and try to win a pawn? Or should I rather not do it? And the solution is, it's basically not winning a pawn because black is having some counter tactics, but it's good anyway. And I went for it, foreseeing that he will win my exchange with bishop g3. But after rook d5, his king is really vulnerable. He cannot castle this way. He can also not castle this way because it's very, very dangerous. Meanwhile, my king is very safe. The computer is claiming white is a lot better after something like knight a to b3 here. But I didn't consider this. I considered the capture and thought it's very dangerous for him, which is true, but black can hold with good defense. The best line is something like this here, and I'm playing c6, getting the queen out, and I have two pawns for the exchange and the safe king, but black is fighting. However, my opponent did some big blunder. He wanted to keep his rook because maybe he was afraid of my queen getting in, but there is just no good square because after rook f8 I have queen g6 probably anyway, and after rook g8 he's dropping the exchange. And after I took the exchange, I even had a mating attack, and now overloading the knight needs to cover f7, and the other knight needs to cover e7, and c4 is just too much, and my opponent resigned. So after that, I was playing white again, this time against Grandmaster, and I got a very good position after the opening, after he missed one chance. He played a6 here because he was kind of afraid playing d5 because of some bishop to b5, either here after this trade or immediate bishop b5. He told that he didn't think things were that nice for him, so that's why he wanted to prevent bishop b5 first. But now I had a very strong move, which was c4. This looks a bit maybe risky first because I weaken some squares, but actually he cannot exploit this. I'm very well organized to cover the d4 square, and he will never push d5, which leaves him in a very passive position, and I got a very huge advantage after something like this. And the position almost looks like normal chess. We have a normal structure and white is just a lot better, but I didn't manage to convert it and the game ended in a draw. After that, I was playing the black pieces and my opponent really crushed me in this game, and I will show you. Yeah, because it's a very beautiful game in some tactical sense, but unluckily it didn't turn out well for me. So the game started out with something like this, after which I was quite happy because I saw I can take a pawn with black, which I thought is quite a good chance to play for a win here with the black pieces. And I went for it, which I probably shouldn't have. I saw that he will play queen h6, and my position needs some care, and I will lose the right of castling because I of course don't want to give back the pawn immediately, because that was the whole plan, to win a pawn. And I was deciding I go here and I will play bishop to here next and then consolidate my position. Everything is very closed, so he shouldn't get such a huge initiative. However, when he played his next move, I realized that I had blundered something. My initial plan was to play bishop g7, but maybe you can guess what annoyed me with this move. Take your time, pause the video if you like. We will continue with the move, which is knight g5. My king is just in trouble here, and this knight g5 move, it didn't look appealing to me. I cannot play rook f8 because then finally h7 drops anyway. I cannot take the queen, of course, because I would be mated here. And there are some other options, but I was not brave enough to go for them, playing something like this here. e6, for example. It's possible because always his queen is attacked and it's not possible to take the rook. Also, I think c6 is an option here, but it's not that easy. And I instead decided to go for the simpler move, bishop f6, and just take the knight. Which was also okay, but maybe bishop g7 was more practical and more complicated though. Now I played knight f6, and I really thought I still have a very good position. I'm a pawn up, I don't see what he's doing. If he goes e4, I just take. I can then stabilize the knight and then getting ready for long castle, for example. However, my opponent found a really strong move, which I've completely underestimated at first, which is f3. First sight, it looks very stupid to close in this bishop, but white has two very strong ideas. The first one, and this is something you always need to watch out for in chess 960, there are some pawns which are just undefended in the initial position, and this pawn is undefended. He's threatening to win an exchange. So this needs to be taken quite seriously. And the other thing is he might play e4 here, after which he's able to take with a pawn and then really open the f-file because my knight needs to move. What I should have done here is just develop and after this play e6. D6, sorry. I disregarded this at first because after something like e5 I thought he gets some initiative after castle and check, but actually black is fine here with the king on e8. Since I discarded this option, I just had, inferior options left, and I consider such stuff, for example, queen to a6, trying to get some counterplay here, but I, for example, after, maybe just some rook move here, I really dislike my knight, and I thought it's not a healthy position. Therefore I played c5 and queen c6, trying to answer this with queen d5 and queen f5, trying to get the queens off while still being a pawn up. However, my opponent again played it quite well. He castled, preventing this queen d5 and still saying my knights are quite stupid and his bishops are good. And I castled, I sacrificed back the pawn, but my knights never really managed to get counterplay, and around here I missed my last chance. I think I should have gone for something like d5 at this move, or one move later at least. Here, going d5, and after queen g6, at least having a strong center and kind of frustrating this bishop and maybe hoping for some counterplay, although white is of course a lot better. Instead, I completely got outplayed here, and after this I played knight e6, after which I kind of desperately played something like this and hoped for something, but after some further queen trade I just had no chance. So yeah, my opponent played this very well, and I was a bit too greedy, taking this pawn, missing this strong tactical detail with knight g5 threatening the checkmate. So that was round 1 to 6. Round 7, I won again, but I don't recall the interesting moments, so that's why I won't show this one. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.